Preparing, got it. This time I will remember to record. But luckily I had the session this morning. I could download it from Facebook, the whole thing, and I'm gonna create a Google link
for the whole thing.
Thank God for that. So we are live. We are officially live on Facebook. Let the Zoom people who are joining on Zoom as well in. It's Sapna at the moment. So we're gonna give just a few minutes, like 3-4 minutes for people to join. I know it's the afternoon in Europe and it's morning in the US. So the advantage of the sessions in the afternoon for the guest speakers is this, that you get to be seen on both continents live.
Perfect.
And yeah, I want to start by welcoming Madalena, who's already here with me. But before I introduce you, my dear Madalena, my beautiful soul sister, we are going to wait for the other sisters to join in. So Sapna joined. Hi, Sapna. Welcome, dear. And let me check the Facebook Live. I hope we are live. Yeah. Yes, I have the confirmation that we are live. We have Chris who just entered as well. Welcome, Chris. Oh, yes. Thank you, Sapna. Yes, I will record. And I was just sharing with Madalena that I have the whole recording of this morning and I am going to share it with you because I downloaded the whole video from Facebook Live. This is the advantage of doing both Zoom Live and Facebook Live within our private group of women on Facebook for this mastermind. So while we wait for the other ladies to join, feel free to share, Sapna, if you have, because this morning was a little bit over time. If you have any feedback from this morning, what did you enjoy most about the session? If it resonated with you.
Yeah, sure. Hi. I think we both need a catch up. I think next week or once you're done with this. But
yes. Absolutely.
You pretty much know a similar story path, as yours. I mean, with our previous companies and the stress levels, etc. So it is important to invest in yourself.
Absolutely.
Definitely invest in yourself, take the time to heal, do things slowly. Rome was not built in a day. That's something I've learned. You want to save the world, but Rome was not built in a day. You can't save everyone. You can only do what you can do. So yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Sapna. That is absolutely true. And it's a true joy to reconnect with you and to see you here. Sapna is joining us from Kenya and an amazing woman, career woman, and also super gift. She has many talents. I remember your gift for writing, Sapna, and she's also multi-talented. Speaking of Kenya, I see Winnie Masaki. Masaki is a Kenyan name, I feel. Is also joining us from Kenya. So I see Africa is really holding the flag high up in terms of show up live. Congratulations, ladies.
We're actually workmates and good friends.
Oh, beautiful. Congratulations, ladies. I'm so happy. And thank you, Sapna, for recommending the mastermind to your friends. Let's see who's joining. So as you're joining, please, again, write where you're joining us from. You can write in the chat. I see, okay, we're live on Facebook as well. So if anybody on the Facebook Live would love to write to us where you're joining from, please don't hesitate to do so as well. And I'm gonna start recording, speaking of remembering to record. Wonderful. So welcome. And Okay, so I don't want to keep our beautiful guest speaker today, Madalena, waiting. I'm going to pick up on something that you just mentioned, Sapna, stress. You mentioned levels of stress. And speaking of that, this afternoon session, I could not have thought of a better thought leader, speaker, medical authority, and feminine authority as well in on this topic of how to best manage stress levels, how to best manage what we spoke about this morning, workaholism and our tendency to overdo and overachieve, which leads us into heightened levels of stress. So without further ado, I'm going to do a brief intro and welcome to our beautiful guest speaker for day 1 of the Self-Love and Self-Growth Mastermind. Just a second, I'm also letting out other people in. I see we have a new joiner. So the first guest speaker session for Self-Love and Self-Growth, Mastering Your Purpose Mastermind, day 1, is Madalena Petrescu. And I have so many stories with Madalena. I actually don't even know where to start. She's such a dear friend and soul sister. Madalena, the best introduction I can do to her, and it's very personal to me. We are going to get to know her in a moment, and you'll understand why I feel so about her. Is truly, she really opened me up to what true soul sisterhood is about. And as you remember, all the intention for this morning in the blessing was that we develop true sisterhood here as well during these 5 days, because we will be navigating quite a bit of time together. And she's such a dear sister. I will read a little bit about Madalena and what she does. I personally know her life story, but let's first go through the records, so to speak, through what's officially on the record, and then we will deepen through some of the highlights of her life story. Okay, so for those of you who have just joined, welcome. Madalena Petrescu is our guest speaker for day 1 of the Mastermind, and she is a leading cardiologist. She has over 15 years of experience in the field of cardiology, as well as spirituality and heart consciousness, human psychology, and science. She can talk to you, by the way, I'm going to make a little break here. She can talk to you for hours when it comes to how to best take care of yourself, of your heart, of the science behind how your heart works and how your heart functions, the stimuli that it responds to, and so on. She has a holistic approach to medicine and believes that disease, dis-ease, is deeply rooted in being disconnected from the heart. In addition to being a practicing cardiologist, she's also a certified conscious parenting coach. And by the way, she's my go-to reference when it comes to motherhood and what it means to build a beautiful, loving, and thriving family. So you can ask her questions about that as well at the end. And she's a certified practitioner in the multiple heart-opening modalities that she's been exposed to throughout her lifetime: instinctive meditation, reconnective energy healing, Kundalini activation process, cacao ceremonies, and so on and so forth, not to mention the fact that she's an international best-selling author for the Ignite book series on Ignite Love, Ignite Parenting, and Ignite Your Female Leadership, where I have the privilege as well to be featured with her on the Ignite Female Leadership book. I want to just warmly welcome as well Deborah, who joins us from Malaysia. Welcome, Deborah. And Justina. Hi, Justina. Welcome back, who is joining us from Paris. And she's a New Yorker joining us from Paris. So welcome, my dear Madalena. Such a joy to have you here.
Thank you, Alina. It is really, really wonderful to be here with you. Indeed, we have such a beautiful connection and sisterhood, and we've supported each other, collaborated, and we're just really together on this journey of the heart, journey of our own creating our own alignment. I'm really happy to be here. I'm actually in the middle, in between jobs. And so my family and I have taken a vacation. So I'm joining you guys from the beautiful energy of Amalfi Coast. And right behind me here is, I'm joining, I'm in the, as you can see, just right and behind us is this beautiful ocean on the Amalfi Coast, which is absolutely beautiful and amazing.
I love that.
It's wonderful to be here with you today.
I love that. And this is such a beautiful example. We were even talking a few moments before going live together, how important it is to really know how to learn over time, because we're not innately born with it, but how important it is to get to learn how to balance our work life, our busy work life. And you do have such an incredibly high stake, high responsibility work life. How to balance that with personal well-being, family well-being, and there you are. We get to see you on your break, on your holiday, on your summer holiday, enjoying such beautiful locations with your two beautiful girls and your husband from Italy. So I'm so happy that you're joining us today. So I'm going to start actually with a very quick question on, I'm going to gear the discussion more towards the theme of the day, which was self-love, but we can go into stress and stress management as well in a moment. I'm going to ask you, my dear Madalena, what actually gradually took you towards this journey of more self-care and self-love? What were some of the igniting moments for you there? Maybe the top one or top two igniting moments that took you eventually on this journey towards deeper self-love and self-care as a woman.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. And it's really incredible. Sometimes you have to go to the other side and to live out what it means to be on the other side, to realize, oh, wait, I'm so far out of alignment that I need to come back. And so my journey, just like putting it really briefly to kind of like the ignite moment that brought me here, is that, you know, born in Romania, came here, I had a really deep passion for healing. And so I chose medicine. I was attracted to the healing arts, chose the heart. Actually, the heart chose me. It was just something that was really pulling me. And then decided to go into the training for cardiology, which, you know, is known to be a really demanding and rigorous field. And not, it's more like of a man's world, and not a lot of women get in there, but I was just so passionate and so motivated, and I got in and all of that. But it's really interesting because the standard of like this kind of training and the standard of the job, the expectation is literally, in order to succeed in this career, it's almost mandatory or required to basically give up anything that's related to self-care or self-love or anything that has to do with yourself. So it really, it's just so demanding. The call burden is so high. People barely even have time to sleep, let alone, you know, have some like self-care or alone practices. Like that doesn't really exist. And so it actually in the training, that's one of the reasons they don't really, it's kind of like nobody really talks about it. It's like the elephant in the room. But you know, women in cardiology, it's tough because if they get pregnant or if they get married, then they're not going to be as available to work as hard. So you almost like need to sacrifice yourself and give up any kind of self-care in order to succeed in that field. And that's exactly what I did. I bought into, you know, the standards. I bought into the expectations, and I just thought that, well, this is what I need to do. So I just basically went along with that. You know, I basically denied any self-care, any thing like that. And I just jumped right into the patterns of workaholism, self-sacrifice, over-delivery, going above and beyond, which a lot of professional women, not just in the field of medicine, but in many fields, you know, where, you know, society defines the expectations and we're all trying to fit ourselves into these boxes of these unrealistic, unreasonable expectations, like to make ourselves be in this way and that way. And that's what I did. And I denied any self-care. I was like, because also in the field that I was in, anything that you do other than work is considered to be, you know, lazy or a waste of time. So, the hero in the room is the one who doesn't have any time for themselves, the hero in the room is the one who sacrifices everything to be there. And so what happened is all of this, and so it even got harder. I mean, I don't even know what balance meant, to be honest. Somehow I never really had any female mentors or anything like that. I don't know, they just never showed up, or I just never allowed myself to see any to receive anyone, because I was in such a go-getter and above and beyond, forge forward kind of energy. And so it got even harder when I had 2 girls and my husband, trying to balance everything out. And the way that I kept myself going is that I used to go running. And running was my way of like, okay, if I'm not, like, it was kind of a way of running away from myself, running away from looking at myself, looking at what's really going on. So something happened about 10 years ago where I had an injury when I went running, and I was not able to, I basically had severe back pain, severe burnout. And I went from like working out all the time, which was kind of my way of numbing my feelings. I went to all of a sudden barely being able to walk. And I was like almost limping. For a year, I was like depressed and anxious, and there was nothing physically, to be the cause or to treat this. And so as a doctor, I was like, what's happening? I went to every doctor, every practitioner, modality, and there was really nothing there. And I didn't know what was going on. So I just kind of like, for about a year, I was just unfulfilled, unhappy. And that about a year later is when I literally got what was really going on, which is like my body almost like got me to stop running so I could stop, not just physically, but in the full sense of the way, to just, stop and stop running, stop doing, and start being present to myself, and start being kind of like asking those questions of like, what am I doing? What is my life all about? Is this really serving me? And so all of that really started taking me on this path of self-discovery, the path of, returning from the heart, and kind of all these realizations that come along when you do this kind of work, and the healing, where you realize that so much of what I had been operating was coming from a place of not enoughness, a place of like, I have to do so much. I have to over give and overdo so that I can be enough and feel enough. And there was all these elements of like lack of true self-worth, and all these illusions and myths that we have as women that we, put on ourselves, that, self-care is selfish, and I have to make everyone else happy so then I can be happy. And I have to, be so hard on myself and do everything, perfectionism. And I feel like a lot of women are connected and relating to this, and especially as we try to fit into what a lot of the societal standards are, to try to get us to excel in what they define as normal, which is really not self-loving. And one of the things that I realize is nobody's going to do it for us, like that journey to come back to yourself and to take that space and to honor ourselves. Nobody's ever going to say, hey, you should do that. It's only something that we can give to ourselves. But anyway, that's kind of a short version of how I ended up on this path of really going to the heart, and really this process of from the head to the heart, from the stress, from the conditionings that we have in the society, culture, familial, that is passed on, and like the unlearning, the healing, and the really deep connecting to the heart to really feel into what is it that's true, what is it that's authentic, and connecting like, instead of like this need to let me do so much so I can be appreciated and loved, to switching instead to a new paradigm of let me connect to my heart, and that's where my enoughness comes from, and that's where my worth comes from, and that's where I fill myself up by this deep connection, this purity to my authentic self. And then when I show up to people from this full cup, that's when I'm truly serving others, rather than the other version of like, I'm depleted, I'm not serving me, so I'm going to try to serve others from this depleted cup, which I think is happening so much of the time in this day and age. And so that's kind of where I ended up where I ended up. And then along this path of all this work that I've done, I realized that when I listened to my heart, that there was a deeper calling beyond the Western medicine of giving pills and fixing, which I'm not denying. It's amazing what's possible in cardiology today, like the things, heart attack and heart failure and the treatments. But I realized that there's so much focus on that, but there's not enough focus on the true core healing of people at the level of the heart. And that's what really is calling me. And that's where together, Chris and I, my husband and I, we came together with this to really work on our passion project, which is called Heart Consciousness. And that's where I met. That's where how I kind of brief version of the journey that I'm on.
That's beautiful. Thank you so, so much for vulnerably and lovingly sharing your journey with us, Madalina. And there's so many threads that I want to pick up on. First of all, I want to underline the fact that you're truly a leader in the sense that I feel there's a lot here that many of the women joining have in common when you speak about the fact that you went into a male-dominated industry primarily. So the field of cardiology is still pretty much, as far as I know, male dominated, and therefore the certain structures and the certain time requirements and all of that. So I want to congratulate you for being a beacon of feminine leadership, first and foremost, where you are and through what you are doing. And thank you for sharing as well about the journey through the accident you had and the recovery. If you ladies have any questions at any point during the call, by the way, you can ask in the chat. Feel free to share yes in the chat if you resonate with any bit of the story of what Madalina has shared so far. And my first question, actually, I like to pick up on things that you mentioned. What would be your advice for women who do find themselves at this particular point in time in pretty, let's say, more male-dominated environments and industries? How can they bring more of their feminine inner knowing and their feminine energy more to the boardroom? Because I know you found ways of how to do that. You actually, I know stories that you shared with me of how you brought more of that feminine sensibility, feminine innate intelligence of the heart more to the boardroom. How did you do that?
It's a really interesting literal and kind of energetic word, because interestingly, in this man world, where I was evolving into my authentic self and to my feminine self, because initially I was trying to fit in like everybody else. I was even wearing like the dark suits and trying to, look all serious and almost like trying to be like a man. I did that, and then like years back, I was like, what am I doing here? This is not authentic. And it was actually my daughter, Sophia. I was going to this, I was part of the faculty doing presentations, and I was giving talks, and then she's like, why are you always wearing like black suits in pants? And she's like, why don't you wear your beautiful dresses? Like, she literally said that to me. And then I was like, wow, I sat with that. Like, she said that and it did something inside me. And then I remember, because I was an ignite moment, because from that point on, I said, this is not authentic for me to try to be like a man to fit in. And I think so much of the time, women do that, because it's like there is a standard. The standard, it's like a structure that's been standing for years, and a lot of times it's the man, kind of the man-dominated world, and where a lot of women consciously and unconsciously are trying to fit into these boxes to make themselves be, who they're not. And then if you're trying to be yourself, it's almost like there's a fear, like, am I going to be rejected? Are they going to think less of me? Are they going to think that I'm not enough? Am I gonna not, how can I prove my self-worth? And how can I, so there's all these fears that stop us and get in the way. What I learned from me is that first of all, when like I had to sit, because a lot of times, who is the authentic self? Who am I? Like a lot of times we're just so time, to create that and to make it non-negotiable for me. I three things. Number one, I started creating non-negotiable time. I said, once I got all of this stuff, I started saying, okay, instead of like, I'm going to do everything for everyone and the job and the family, and I'll get to me if I get to. If I have time, I started saying, no, I need to get to me, because this is how I show up to others. Like if I'm in my true authentic self, then I'm in my vitality, I'm in my energy, I know who I am, and I'm showing up from this place of a full cup and from a place of inspiration. And then I can show up to others from this energy to inspire others to, from my true self. You know, there's an energy of vitality. Whereas if I'm trying to fit in, it's not really me. It's like I'm operating from some unconscious, you know, need of trying to fit in, which is not authentic. It's not loving to me. So I think for me, like I started creating that space, make it a non-negotiable, setting boundaries. And you know, there's a process, I can talk about that later, how I did that. And when I did that, I said, wait, I love like being feminine. You know, this is all men and they have their own energy of masculine energy. That's fine. But I am going to be me. And so once I kind of declare that to myself, it was really interesting because I was shocked because the more I showed up in my true self, like even the clothes and the energy and the words, like, you know, I was using words like, let's harmonize, let's connect, like, you know, things like that, which like, it's not a masculine type of thing in this field. It's almost like they honored me, like they respected and honored, because I was not showing up in a place of I'm timid. I'm showing up in a place of power. Like this is who I am, you know. It's like you know, and so when that happened, they actually even chose me to be the chair of the board. So then when I was the chair of like all these men, somehow they won. Like I'm not sure if it was even conscious why they chose me. And so when I was leading even the board meetings, I remember that I would take space for myself, take time for myself. And even before the meetings, I would, you know, really show up to the meetings and to work and to everyone from that place of authenticity. I would bring in the elements of connection, of harmonizing, of understanding one another, you know, these kind of more feminine elements, which before I was the chair, it was more like you versus me and fighting and you know, like not getting along and all kinds of stuff like that, and more energy of like separation. And so I started, you know, declaring, I'm like, hey guys, these are the values we're going to go by. And they kind of rolled their eyes, but then they still went along and they still honored, you know. So what I learned is that when you are taking the time, you're coming from a place of authenticity, you're honoring yourself, and you're coming from a place of power, not fear. Like there's a respect that happens.
Yeah, totally.
You know? People feel that, and that's really for me like what I noticed really worked. And so that was a really good feedback. That was a lesson. I didn't know that. And then so I just kind of started doing more and more of that. And I feel like a lot of issues and problems started getting resolved when we're coming from a place of unity, harmony, understanding, and things like that.
Yeah, and I love the emphasis on bringing them together. You know, you embody so well the energy of cooperation and collaboration rather than fighting or going against each other. That energy was literally diffused all around you. So it's so beautiful, and it brings up to our awareness, to our conscious awareness, so many qualities of the feminine when you speak. So I want to emphasize here the quality of cooperation, the authenticity. Authenticity is both female and male, I feel, but it takes a journey of vulnerability, of being vulnerable, which is also one of the core essences of the feminine. It takes us being vulnerable with ourselves and honest with ourselves, so as to become authentic. And you touched upon some of the practices, and this is where I'm going next with the series of questions. You touched on some of the practice that you developed certain practices in order to reach that level of harmony within yourself and more authenticity, so as to address the challenges that you had at that point at work, and to address the way people also related at work better. So what are some of the practices that you, Madalena, do and still do today, maybe, when it comes to self-love and connection to the heart? Mm-hmm. And maybe we can all get inspired here.
Yeah, no, it's and I can share with my story, because it has, I cannot tell you how you know, 10 years ago, I was just like so unhappy, unfulfilled, and I wanted my whole life to change. But then it's like I had to change, you know, and it's more like I had to unfold more into my true self, so that then I could create alignment, and that's how things started to change, you know. And so like for me, there was a massive inner shift that happened. And so I think the very first thing is that like I mentioned earlier, it's a paradigm shift. The very first thing is the decision, like an inner decision that I am going to honor me, and nobody else is doing it, because like nobody else at work was doing it. So just because nobody else is doing it doesn't mean that I have to follow others. I'm going to do it. So there was an inner decision that I said, I'm going to honor me, and which means I'm going to create that, because I used to have this inner self-talk. I don't have time. And I was doing so many things, so much leadership, so much presentations, work, on call. And even right now, my colleagues, like they don't have time to sleep. So I was saying the same stuff. But the very first thing is that a lot of this inner self-talk is a story. You know, we create stories, you know, it's not the truth. So once I said, I'm gonna make time, like this inner decision, it's like a declaration that I make to myself and to life and to everyone, I started making the time. And every single day and every single morning from that point on, I made non-negotiable time where I create a space, and whatever that space, whatever, you know, people can start out with like 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Like right now, my space is at least about an hour, but it can go longer in the weekends. And that space is basically me being with me and me sitting with me making that, because otherwise, if we're not sitting with ourselves, we're just going to unconsciously be operating from the unconscious mind, from all these patterns and beliefs that are not true. So that's my thing in the morning. And then I created boundaries around that. And then within that space, the self, like there's a few things that I do. And one of them is really activating my conscious awareness, which is really becoming present and being honest with myself. Like, okay, what are my patterns? Like, what are the beliefs that I'm buying into that are not true? What are the thoughts that I'm buying into that are not true? What are the things that I need to heal in myself? Because if that stuff is not done, it will continue to dominate and to like the quiet kind of you know, the puppet us, like we'll just from the background. So for me, that's one of the most self-loving practices that I can do, which is to really shed the light, turn the lights on these things that are otherwise in the unconscious that we're not aware of. And that takes, you know, you talked about earlier this morning, that was so powerful about that personal responsibility. I feel like without that, nothing can happen. Inner power is grounded and rooted in self-responsibility. So really, that's one of the things that I do, is like really looking at myself without judgment, with compassion, to say, okay, where is this coming from? You know, why did I get triggered? You know, what is going on with this pattern? Is that really belief really true? And so that's one of the things that I do. And the other thing that I do after that is to really connect with my heart. And I do this through meditation, or maybe nature walks, or maybe dancing or ceremonies, where I just connect with my heart, connecting with the authentic self, connecting with the abundant self. And really, when you start to really connect with your heart deeply, and you honor that, a few things start to happen. Number one, you recognize that all the love you're looking outside is really inside, and you start to tap into what is always there, but a lot of times, you know, we're not aware. Number two, you start to discover, like, what is it that's really true for me? What's really aligned with me? What's really for me? What's really exciting for me? What's really pulling me? Because it's not a coincidence. Like, our excitement about something is linked to our passion, our purpose in life, and what we're here to do in this lifetime. So I started like really being with myself and doing that. And then of course, the other self-loving practices, now that I hear, then it's taking the action. Because if we hear what we need to do, but then we don't do it, we're actually going against ourselves. It's a self-sabotage, you know, when we keep doing the same stuff that's not serving us. So that's, you know, and so that's like a lot of the things that I do. Journaling is also a part of this. Nature is really powerful. And I think part of like really, which is what you're doing here, Alina, is having a community of like souls, like sisters, like people that are in this journey together. And that's one of the most self-loving thing that I do, is to be part of, to be in our community that we have. We call it our soul family, where you get to be your authentic self. You get to be with people that don't judge you, that hold space for you, where you can be who you are, that you can feel inspired and discover and be on this journey together.
I love it. That is so, so powerful. Everything that you shared, it's momentous. And I do hope that for those of you listening, you feel inspired, you can take notes, you can jump in and ask questions. I also want to welcome our joiners from Seattle and from Romania who just joined on Zoom and on Facebook. It's also a beautiful holiday here in Europe, so I want to honor our moms. It's so beautiful that both our moms, your mom Mariana and my mom Mariana as well, her name is, what another beautiful synchronicity, have joined. The way we, and speaking of sisterhood, the way we met, myself and Madalena, is actually at a personal growth conference. That event, a huge event that we both joined, and that's how we met each other. And this is how you know you're on the right track, when you meet people, when you're actually on a journey of expansion and you start meeting other like-minded, like souls that are also there, committed to their expansion, committed to looking at themselves vulnerably in the mirror, exactly like what Madalena was sharing before, looking at yourself vulnerably and just being honest with yourself. And it takes mountains of courage, I know, because as well, my journey has been has taken me through self-sabotage as well, and through having to look over and over and over in that mirror until I learned the language of love, until I learned the language that, and that's where powerful practices like what you were sharing, Madalena, like journaling and meditation and sitting in silence with oneself help, because you get to hear some of the nagging ego-driven voices, and you get to talk to them, you get to slow them down, and you get to speak to them from the heart, from your higher self, which actually brings us to what you're developing next. Speaking of the journey of really connecting to oneself and to the heart, and developing a life that is more aligned with your higher self, I know that recently you and your husband have co-founded a beautiful company, HeartQ, and you're also dedicated to see that grow besides your main job as a cardiologist. Oh, let me just, there's more people coming in, entering. Welcome, I'm gonna welcome everybody. So I was sharing that Madalena has co-founded HeartQ, and she's balancing that with her job as a cardiologist. And HeartQ has been born out of your passion, I know, and out of your soul service and out of your life story. Can you share more with the women that are here live? What do you do at HeartQ? And maybe how was it birthed, first and foremost? When did that first seed, because we're actually looking as well as at entrepreneurship through this mastermind. My first question to you is, how did the first seed of HeartQ came about in your heart?
It's really interesting because I almost remember how this was happening. So I started doing all this work on myself and all this journeying and really immersing myself, because a lot of the self-work is not just, it's done, you got to go at many levels, at many facets, like we talked about, consciousness, spirituality, science, somatic, to really get to the core true self. What I started noticing is that when I was taking care of patients, what I was noticing is that I would see a lot of people, a lot of female patients. They want a female doctor, so they would see me. So I have a lot of big population of female patients. And I started noticing that so many of the women were like wearing the heart earrings and heart necklaces. And it's like, you can tell that there was desire, that they wanted love. They wanted to feel love. They wanted to feel loved, but it was not inside, like they were not really connecting with it. Like you can tell that it was not, the thing is this, it's always there, but it's an illusion that keeps us away, believing that it's not inside us. And so what I noticed is that as I was listening to patients and talking to them, and they were coming with their heart problems, as I started listening deeper and I started like asking more questions, what I really realized is that so much of what is driving dis-ease, unease, depression, anxiety, all of these things, and stress, by the way, is responsible, 90% responsible for all the medical admissions that we see in the hospitals, stress. That's so much of, because anxiety, depression, unfulfillment, all of these things and diseases, there's so much linked to stress. And what I started noticing is that a lot of the stress is rooted in, it's actually more simple than complex, which it's rooted in misalignment from one's heart. People are running around all the time, doing this, doing that, serving 1,000 things, running 1,000 steps a minute, trying to be there for everybody, trying to overdo, overperform, overachieve, or maybe completely lost. But what's missing, it's a missing link, is like there's no alignment to their heart. Yeah. It's that simple thing of just coming present to, okay, like, let me sit with me, what's true for me. And a lot of people want that consciously. Yes. But it's almost like, the unconscious force and the stress force, there's like a force holding us back, because what happens is, what I noticed in people in general is that people want to feel loved. They want to connect with their heart. They want to connect with the truth. But the problem is that we, along our life path, have closed our heart to ourselves. So, hurts happened, wounds happened, challenges happen in life where people got hurt. And in those moments, unconsciously, people close their hearts. And all these layers of closing heart, and now we're separated from the heart. So what I noticed is that to really get to the heart, healing is something that needs to happen. And the healing, Rumi has a beautiful quote, which is, the path to love is not by seeking love, but by becoming present to the barriers that we have unconsciously built against love. So the path to get to the heart cannot happen without really looking at, what are these barriers? Where do they come from? How did I create them? And how can I heal them? And how can I purify them? So that's kind of what I realized. And then what really started to attract me, because as I was going into this journey of my own heart healing and all these processes, and I realized that there's a unification, that it's not just like medicine is the only thing, science is the only thing, or spirituality is the only thing, and everything else sucks. I realized there's a unification of everything, that all these modalities are actually supporting of one another when we're working together. So across all the realms, and that that I've been exposed to in science, psychology, spirituality, consciousness, they're all, by weaving them together, unifying them together, is really how we do the authentic work. And so that's really, as I started doing this work, and my husband has been with me on this, we started getting really impassioned about, let's get to the core, instead of staying out here in the tree branches and putting band-aids, which doesn't really work. Maybe it can work for a short time. I started caring more about, how do I really, help others? Just like me, I went to my own core. How do I help others to get to the core? Because a lot of times people may consciously want to, but there's so many things standing in the way, and guides are important. And so that's really what I started getting passionate about, is really getting to the core of that true healing, which is at the level of the heart. And that's how really we started getting passionate about HeartQ.
That's wonderful, wonderful. And so let me ask you this: how do you facilitate this emotional healing at the level of the heart, and a better management of our stress levels through HeartQ? What is the soul offering that you have developed through HeartQ and together with your husband?
So we have like there are 4 pillars to this, which this is what you mentioned. Just to give people, we talk about IQ, which is mental intelligence. We talk about EQ, emotional intelligence. So what came through us is HeartQ, which is heart intelligence. And, to be honest, heart intelligence is something we're born with. Like, if you look at children, like I was watching my girls playing in the ocean, and I'm like, the freedom that they're in, the playfulness, they're just in pure heart. But as we get older, we start buying into all these limiting beliefs, we start telling ourselves stories, we start limiting ourselves, and then we forget to know how to listen to the heart. So it's not like the heart is something that is foreign, but we just forget, so it doesn't come as natural to people unless you're like a child. Then it's like, you can see the children. But what happens is when we're not intentional about using heart intelligence, what we know from human psychology is that what happens is that the default happens. And the default is that 95% of the time of the way that people are operating is at the level of the unconscious mind. So, which means that, people may not even be aware what's really driving them, but what's really driving people are beliefs and patterns and thoughts that are so deeply buried within that people aren't even aware of that. But that's what's driving them. And all of these are rooted in some level of stress-based, fear-based beliefs of not enoughness. Something is wrong with me. I am flawed. I'm not worthy. These kind. It's some element of that. People with their own version, but it's some element of that, which then creates a need. And that need is to feel love, the need to feel worthy, the need to feel enough. And so people then are coming from that energy, and it's driven by these unconscious processes in the mind, and they're spending their whole life doing all these things by looking at other people, like their partners or their job or whatever, to get from them the love, the worthiness, the attention. Let me do enough so I can be enough. Let me achieve so much so then I can feel worthy. Let me make sure that everybody loves me so that I can feel love. So it's coming from that energy. And when we're actually using heart intelligence, what happens is that you're now using a different GPS. You're not using that unconscious mind. You're now coming the journey to the heart, which is something that is different. It's a new way of doing something that is forgotten, which is done through the feeling, through the tuning into, and now you're coming from a place of truth, what's true for me, and two, love. And I'm not talking about cheesy love. I'm talking about like love, the power of love. It's the power of love, compassion, that abundance energy. So that when you're using heart intelligence, you're coming from that. And when people do that, alignment happens. And when we're in alignment, that's where power comes. That's when fulfillment comes. That's when harmonization of self and relationship happen. And so anyway, that's really what the essence of HeartQ is all about. And we have the 4 pillars there, which, in 4 sentences, the first pillar is, number 1, let's become present to what are these barriers, that Rumi's talking about, that I was mentioning. What are these barriers of, what are these beliefs that I bought into? What are these patterns? What are these wounds that I need to heal? Because otherwise, these continue to be dominating from the unconscious. Number 2, it's the pillar of expression, because it's one thing to get it here at the mind, but now you got to like somatically and emotionally express it, release it, and all of that. And then once you do that, then the 3rd pillar is that of heart connection, really a deep reconnection with your authentic self, to really discover your truth, what's really, the love and the truth that you really are, and to start listening and to start giving yourself permission to expand into your truth. And then the last pillar is taking action. And this is something that is really powerful, because without taking action, nothing happens. Now that I know what is true for me, let's take heart-inspired action. Otherwise, nothing's going to happen. So these are like the 4 pillars, and this is really the essence of the essence of what we do, and the essence of what HeartQ stands for.
Wonderful. So it's a coaching program over several months.
So there's a few things. Number 1 is we have an amazing program called Unleash Your Heart, which basically the week 1 is the process of awareness. Week 2 is heart connection, and then week 3 is the heart aligned action, which is an amazing process that comes, goals not from the mind but from the heart. And then the second thing is that we have also meditations. We also have a free master class on this process, and then we have coaching. and then deeper, depending on the level that people want to go to.
Yeah.
We also have a program for how do you connect to your heart. So there's all kinds of things on heartq.com. If you go to heartq.com.
Yes, I'm gonna tell everybody that if they want to find out more about the programs and the teachings, the heart intelligence that you're talking about, Madalina, they can go straight to heartq.com and find out more about it. I'm gonna read the comment of one of the joiners of Sapna. She says, it is almost as if people do not want to talk loud about heart intelligence in groups, discussions, but everyone thinks about it. You know, like what you mentioned, Madalina, the elephant in the room. We want to almost conform to the norm, which, if you think about it, needs to be changed and have more tuning done to oneself. Yes, instead of tuning externally, finding the reference externally, and we were talking about it this morning as well, it's so important for us to form the solid foundation of inner reference, of inner reverence, of inner self-love. And it's not selfish, it's self-fulfilling. It's filling your cup first so that you can overflow and give from that. And you are worthy because we all are emanations of that divine. And the divine is not in just one seed of leaf or another, or in one grass leaf or in one tree, and it's in all of us. And we really have to get back to that knowledge and not place our worthiness externally, like you so beautifully said. So thank you, Sapna, for that comment. I'm inviting you to ask Madalina any questions you have while we still have her with us for the next 10 minutes. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to jump in. What do you think, Madalina, about what just Sapna shared? Conforming to the norm.
I think it's so true. I see it all the time, and even if people at work, I've done some coaching there, and a lot of the physicians will say, wow, like when I help them to go like kind of uncover, following the trail all the way to the root, they get it. But then I almost can see in them, a lot of them are like scared, like, wow, how do I deal with that? Because there's a force of the standard that wants you to conform. And to be honest, it's familiar, it's easy. And I mean, I've done this work so much, and there's moments that I really have to, like, it's a strong force. But you talked about this, Alina, earlier this morning, and I think it's such a powerful concept that you talked about, and I feel like it's so important, which is, along the life, we somehow trade our authenticity for the need to be loved, rather than like the vulnerability and the transparency to feel the love and come from that place of doing what we love, of expressing, living life as an expression of love, rather than living life from that place of wanting to be loved. And I think a lot of that is based on trust. When you talked about self-trust this morning, it's such a powerful thing when we start to trust ourselves, instead of trusting the standard, trusting what the authority says, trusting what other people say. Nobody knows what is right for each person other than themselves. Nobody knows what's right for you other than you. And the problem is that when we're not listening to our true heart and our true self, we end up with misalignment. And misalignment is the number one core cause of the stress, the number one core cause of the anxiety and the stress and the unfulfillment and the tension in the relationships. But when we start to trust that voice, and it's like a new muscle. I remember when I started doing that, it's like, wow, when I started doing that, I was like, I'm not good at this. This is hard. I remember. And then I said, no, it's okay. This is like when you go to work out at a gym, like working out your muscle. It's like, I don't have any muscle, but the more you work out at it, the more like the muscle becomes stronger and stronger. So like the more you start walking that path, it's hard. And there's all these, decades, if not thousands of years of conditioning working against you. But the more you work on that and you align with people like in this community that you, Alina, are creating, the more we align with a community that anchors us to our authentic self. Community is really important. I think without community, it's really hard to do it on your own. And so you have to have a community, and you have to, create these practices and keep working on this muscle of self-trust, listening to yourself, and then carrying out, that's when alignment starts to happen. All of a sudden, it's like things are working out. Synchronization is happening. Like all of a sudden you realize, wow, I mean, that's what separates the people that are out there in the world fulfilled and living out their dreams versus the ones that are, you know, kind of in the angst and the stress. It's really walking the path, I feel, into the authentic self.
Wow, so beautiful and so important. All of the points that you touched on are pivotal, if I am to say so. And community, yes, what you shared is really one of the things at the heart of the matter. And I recognize this speaking about our individual journeys, that community for me came after I started tuning into my heart and into my heart intelligence. So it's about learning to recognize what is important to you, and to you ladies that we're talking to here, what is most important to you and what you're seeking for in a community. Interestingly, how Madalena and I met are actually after having set a clear intention from the heart that we wanted to meet a soul community of like-minded, like-hearted friends. And within that same month, it happened. And it was a bigger community and environment that we were in, dedicated to these practices geared towards personal growth and evolution. So I really want to congratulate you for that, Madalena, and for everything that you're birthing since then into the world, and taking it next level with HeartQ and the programs that you and your husband are developing. We just got a question in from Christina. She's asking, how can I connect and focus on self-love when I have so many responsibilities towards others? Wow, that's a very beautiful and deep question, Christina. Thank you for sharing that. I feel it's so hard to create that self-time, she's saying. Thank you,
gosh,
Christina.
Christina, thank you for asking that, because trust me, I know how you feel completely. And because I was there for most of my life. I was exactly in this place. You know, I was mother of two beautiful girls that needed my attention, my husband, my family, my work, my patients, and I was like multiple directorship roles. And I was doing in the weekends, you know, talks. You know, I was part of the faculty and doing talks. And so I remember when I started having this like doing all of this, and I realized, oh my God, there's no way I can start to connect with myself without making the space and the time. It's just not possible. Because otherwise I'm just running. And I remember that I was saying to myself, I don't have time. It's not possible for me. Maybe other people who, you know, have less difficult jobs, or maybe they don't have kids, or maybe that have more. But I remember telling myself, and the very first thing, as I started, what I can tell you now, like, you know, years later, there's like a few pearls. Number one is that, and this is really powerful. Number one is there's something that happens when, you know, we declare, when we look in the mirror or something, you know, like you just declare in yourself to say, I'm going to make time. I am going to make time, because it's a paradigm shift. Because when you recognize that the best way you can serve others is by first serving yourself, because if we're serving others and we're not serving ourselves first, then we're showing up to everyone from a depleted cup, from a stressful cup, and then that's not really, you know, we're not serving ourselves or others. But when you're serving yourself and you're filling yourself up from an overflowing cup, then everybody else is receiving the overflow, and then it's a win-win-win. It's a win for you, it's a win for others, and it's a win for the energy and everything. Once I got that, not just in my mind, but in my heart, once I really realized that, for me, that realization was, that epiphany was a paradigm shift in myself. Because from that point on, I said, I'm going to do it. I don't know how, I don't need to know how, but I'm just going to commit that I'm going to do it. And I think that's the very first thing, is to kind of make that declaration and make that inner decision in a very powerful way, whatever that looks like, journaling, but you need to go out and just be by yourself without anyone else, and just kind of make that, you know, I taking care of patients. I know that even a lot of patients, when they decide I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to quit smoking, I'm like, when people, a lot of times this is what they start out with. It's like a declaration. I'm gonna do it. And the people who have that declaration, it works. You're sending these vibrations out into the universe, into your heart, and it's just, you're going to be supported. But that's the first thing. The second thing is, now you get to work. Now you say, okay, now I've decided it. Now, how am I going to do it? And I feel that a lot of times the things that we have on our plate is because we put it there, and when I looked at my plate many years back, I was like, wow, there's so many things here. And I started getting honest with myself and making a list and saying, okay, which things here are not for me? Making a list of yes versus no. So what is it, the people that I'm spending time with, and also the things on my to-do list, and the responsibilities that I have, and all of these things that I somehow consented to, because a lot of times we, as women, we want to say yes right away. Yeah, I was like the yes person. Yes, 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 yes. I wanted to be there for everyone and everything. And a lot of times when you say yes to everyone, you're saying no to yourself. So sometimes we need to start saying no to others in order to say yes to ourselves, and not doing it from a mean way, but from an honoring way. And so I started making a list and saying, okay, these are the things. Do I really need to be doing faculty and doing talks every weekend? Okay, no, I'm done with that. I'm not going to do that because that takes up all my weekend space. There's all these things that I started realizing that I was doing that I just needed to stop doing them. So I think it's kind of like coming into yourself, being like this honesty and saying, okay, this I'm going to stop doing. This I'm going to give to other people to do. This, why did I agree to it? Forget it. So you just start kind of really start saying no and start taking things off, and also looking at the people we're spending time with. I remember I used to hang out with everyone that wanted to hang out with me. And then I started saying, well, I'm going to decide who I really want to spend time with, that's inspiring to me, that's uplifting, that it's encouraging. So once I did that, there was so much space that I started creating. It came out of, it's incredible. And then I started realizing, okay, what's yes to me? What's a yes list? And what are the people that I want to spend time with? And what are the things that I want to do for myself? And so a lot for me, that really helped me and then somehow when you take that path, all these things start opening up. So I kind of declared that I have this non-negotiable time in the morning, and then everything else just started working out. It just all kind of shifted around my central, but I put me in the center. I put this in every single morning. There's not a morning that starts for me without me doing this thing for me. And whatever that self space looks like, I create boundaries. I even tell my kids, I ask my husband, I protect it. I make it. I create this boundary around it, and I honor it. And what I notice is that when I do that for myself and I'm done with that space with me, I show up with so much more vitality and abundance and love and excitement, and I'm showing up differently in life. And when I don't take that space because of whatever reason, I'm just I feel like I'm trying to survive in life. Whereas when I make that space and I fill myself up, I'm thriving in life. So it's that big of a difference for me. And that's what I recommend to others as well.
Wonderful. I was actually taking notes as you were sharing all of that. And thank you so much, Madalena. This is true soul wisdom and heart wisdom, everything that you shared, and life wisdom. Because we get to first be confronted with these challenges before we actually learn how to deal with them. So Christina, no worries, you're definitely on the right path. And Christina says that it helped her to see the concept that you explained of giving from an overflowing cup, to see it as a new perspective, and that change. It's a paradigm shift. Absolutely, it's a paradigm shift, and it helps us when we reframe things. Reframing is such a powerful concept as well, and we look at a bigger perspective. We look at what is actually our priority. Like you said, Madalena, making time for ourselves is actually about looking at our priorities. What is important to me, but not from a mind level, from a heart consciousness and soul awareness level. Because when we satisfy first and foremost the needs that come from deep within, whether that is need for more time for oneself, or whether that is need for time to create, because some of all of us are very creative, or be artistic, or travel, or dance, or do anything that actually brings us that childhood playful curiosity and joyfulness back into our lives. No matter what we realize is a priority for us at this particular point in time, or making more time to spend with our children and spouses, no matter what is our priorities, it's so important to become conscious of them, so it's a prerequisite to taking action towards that direction. So thank you so much for sharing that, my dear Madalena. If there's, I'm going to check the Facebook as well for messages or questions. So if there are no more questions, I would invite you to, in the end, as we wrap up and close up our sessions for day 1 of the Self-Love and Self-Growth Mastermind, Mastering Your Purpose, if you had one top piece of advice to share with women, Madalena, about how they can grow sustainably, because it's the theme of our mastermind is self-love and self-growth. If you had one big piece of advice to women with regards to growing sustainably, expanding in their lives, in a manner that is truly sustainable and that they can cope with, because sometimes we want to reach for the moon, but we also have to be grounded. What would be that advice that you would love to leave women with tonight?
Yeah, I would say, I would recommend 2 things to people. Number 1 is, when we talk about self-love, it means that we are talking about our heart. It means that we are connecting with who we really are and what is our truth. And the heart is the source of love and abundance. So not doing that means that we continue to go on life from a place of need, from a place of looking for love from outside in. And we continue to feed into this lack paradigm, which is not serving us or anyone. But when you are honoring your heart, again, it's like the societal myth of it's selfish. It's the opposite of that. It's the most loving thing that you can do to yourself and others. And my husband and my kids know that, because when they see me like not, getting triggered easily or something, they'll say, do you want to spend some time by yourself and connect to your heart? They'll like gently land that for me, because if I'm not doing that, I'm just going to show up to everyone else from that place of trigger, from that place of the need, instead of, when you connect to your heart, you're connecting to the abundance of love and the truth that you really are. And now you're showing up from a different energy. And that's where alignment happens. And what I would say to people is, somebody mentioned this earlier, was it Sapna, I think, you're not going to create Rome in one day. Like, it's not like all of a sudden you're going to go and meditate. Now I know everything with my heart. No, it's one of those things that like be like a child, explore, be curious, try different things, try different guides, try different, just to really get to that place. And not from a place of expectation or have to, but from a place of just like an exploration, an adventure, and try different things. Everybody has different things that resonates with them. Maybe it's nature for you. Maybe it's going into the ocean. Maybe it's journaling. Maybe it's talking it out with your soul sister. Maybe it's, going to an inspirational event where you can trigger something inside you. So find out what are those things, like make a list, what are those things that are creating a sense of igniting in your heart, like a kind of like excitement, a vitality, like what's creating that in you, because that is the source. That's your heart pulling you to that thing. And the more of that you do, the more you're going to be connecting to your heart, and the more you be connected to your truth. And it doesn't have to, just start slow, start small, make a list every day of like, oh, this is the thing that was calling me. And that list can be ever changing and ever flowing, because we're always evolving and changing ourselves. Yeah. And the second thing that I would really, really like, I would, when you get off this call, please do this for yourself. Make a list, and look, it's ringing. Yeah, it's like confirming. So make a list of like a yes list and a no list. What are the things in your life or meet people and things that are not resonating with you, but you're still like somehow
So important.
like consented to it. Somehow you said
Yeah.
yes, and you made some agreement to that, and then you're just doing it because it's like, okay, it's familiar, but like what are those things that you're doing that's not serving you? What are some practice habits that you're doing that are not loving to you? And make that your no list, that you're going to work out, like, to stop doing those things. And then what is your yes list? What is yes for you? What are the people that is yes for you? What are the things that you want to do more of? What are the habits that you want to say yes to? So that's a great place to start. That's what I would recommend.
Absolutely. These two practices alone comprise years. can actually comprise years of self work. And ladies, as we do this, I want to invite each of us to be gentle with oneself, right? Because even they're super potent and super effective, these practices that Madrina shared, and she knows it as much as I do, and we are both big advocates of doing things on the basis, with the foundation of really compassion and love for oneself. And so I really, really love it what you shared, Madalena, and I invite the ladies who joined today and who are going to see the replay as well to do their lists. And you mentioned something so important. It's not only about our habits, it's also about the people in our lives, which is also equally important. Sometimes we may discover we've outgrown certain friendships or certain circles of people, and we want to speak. What I can share with regards to that very quickly is that when I started decluttering my life in terms of like not necessarily responding favorably to friendships that didn't fill me up, or where I felt I was overgiving again, but I wasn't receiving anything in return. You know what it feels like sometimes to be surrounded by people who constantly complain. You're trying to help them and give them advice, but at the same time, where is it going? If it's going nowhere, then you end up being depleted. So when I opened up and made place in my life, actually, this decluttering made space for new, more aligned soul friendships to come in. So, and for the people in your life that actually you love and enjoy spending time with, really share a token of gratitude. Really reach out to them and tell them from time to time how much they mean to you. Speaking of love, it's once we fill our cup, we are able to give to others and give gratitude and recognition. So I thank you so much, Madalena, for joining us today. Any final words that you would like to share? I know we've had a little bit over time, but I could listen to you forever.
I wanted to say that it is so like really you started the story, but I want to finish that story because when we met at Fest, you know, it's really funny because my husband and I would go running in the morning, and I remember saying to him, you know, let's declare that we meet our soul family, community of like people, like souls, like hearts that are like on the same journey, where we can inspire each other and support each other on this. And I remember like this is something that I was calling out. And I remember you also did the same thing, because later on you showed us your journal, and your journal pretty much was saying the same stuff we were saying. And it's so interesting that when you're calling that out, you know, that's how we met in A-Fest. It was this beautiful place that we met. And that's
in
where
Sardinia, actually.
In
Italy. We met in Italy, where you are now.
I'm in Italy now. And so I just want to, like, on this path of growth, I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to be, you know, to be with people that are on the same path, because otherwise, if you're not, then those others might be like, what are you doing? Like, you even unconsciously, you might start to lower yourself to match or be at that other level that's not aligned with you. So, but when you're supported with people that are, you know, kind of all about authenticity and vulnerability and acceptance and unconditional love, you know, so I think that's really important. And I do want to say a shout out to both of our moms who are on this call, both of them, Mariana.
We want to honor you, and we love you, and we honor you, our beautiful moms.
Our beautiful moms.
On the day of Saint Mother Mary today.
Santa Maria. Exactly. It's like their birth name. So what a beautiful time to have this self-love topic on and our mothers being with us, you know, honoring this beautiful connection that we have each with our mom and together in our soul family.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up, Madalena. I really want to honor as well all the women on the call and also our moms. And I want to say with regards to that when us and our moms, we do this beautiful inner work, we do it for generations, sometimes for centuries. We're not even aware of how much we carry inside. And once we start making and creating from a space of joyful awareness, that space for us to grow and expand, and when we're loving, when we're understanding with ourselves, we do the work of centuries. And I want to give a big call out to all the ladies who are joining the calls, whether it's live or on the replays, because as Madalena was sharing, we do intend to form a beautiful community. I do intend to continue with Innovatrix, and whether you're going to join the free content or some of the paid content that I'll be offering later, I am so dedicated to really showcasing some of the best entrepreneurs, some of the best soulful, amazing leaders and speakers out there who are here to inspire us. I feel inspired when I meet them, like Madalena today. And I want to share everything that inspires me. I want to share it with the world, and we're here to grow together. So I love to see the view or the metaphor of a beehive. Bees collaborating and growing together. And speaking of the heart is the generator of sweetness in our lives. So yeah, I'm looking forward to creating a thriving community together and to showcasing more of our sisters in this community over time. So with that, I thank you so much wholeheartedly, Madalena, for joining us today. I invite you all to join us for the morning session tomorrow. Every morning there's a masterclass on one of the 4 main topics of the Mastermind. As well as we have a guest speaker speaking on that topic again in the afternoon. So tomorrow the topic is energy management, how to manage our energy better and self-nurture. And the guest speaker in the afternoon is another good friend of mine, Alexandra Chabotaru, which you will meet tomorrow, and also an inspirational feminine leader who has her own podcast. So have a beautiful evening, ladies, and thank you so much once again for joining. Christina saying thank you, and I will see you all tomorrow for day 2 of the Mastermind. And thank you for investing in yourselves. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Alina. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.